Oxford from the inside. The good, the bad, but always the truth.
Hey guys, welcome to Oxford from the Inside, the good, the bad, but always the truth. Today we're here with Abishek and Sam. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Abishek. I'm currently going to be entering my third year of computer science, and I'm at Trinity.
Hi, I'm Sam. I'm also about to start my third year doing maths at Trinity.
Nice. And today we're going to be talking about how to prepare for the MATs, the admissions test for various degrees, including mainly maths and computer science. So guys, what is the admissions test MAT is like? Starting with Sam.
So the mathematics admissions test, or MAT as everyone calls it, is a written exam done in late October, early November by maths and computer science applicants at Oxford, as well as maths applicants to Imperial College London and Warwick. It's designed to test your knowledge and skills within the A-level maths course. There seems no knowledge beyond the first 4 terms of A-level maths, so they don't require further maths or anything like that. It's not necessarily designed to test how much you know, but how deeply you know it as such. And if you can apply your knowledge to new and challenging problems that require more out-of-the-box thinking than the standard A-level questions.
Nice. So in terms of what the structure of the admissions test, what is the structure and how is it different if you're applying for ComSci rather than maths? Abhishek.
Yeah, so basically there are 5 questions in the exam. The first question is something that everyone has to do, and that's like the multiple choice questions. So they're basically like just small questions that test just basic aspects of the maths based on the AS level spec, I think. And then following that, there are 4 longer questions, and that's where they can differ between like maths and computer science. So basically, the maths students have to do questions 2, 3, 4, and 5, where out of those 4 questions, 4 and 5 are specific to maths. So they're quite like heavy on the pure maths, trigonometry, all that kind of stuff. Whereas computer science have to do 2, 5, 6, and 7. So basically, those last 2 questions are going to be the ones more based on computer science specific ones. In particular, they kind of test stuff like logic and questions based on game theory, that kind of stuff. So it's not really, it doesn't really test many of the pure aspects, but rather more based on kind of proof-oriented questions. So what I mean by that is stuff like, prove that if you're playing like this kind of game, and they've often established like a set of rules or something like that, prove that you can never achieve this in this game, or this player can never win this game, something like that. And it's quite unique to MAT because I found like a lot of other entrance exams often don't kind of test those styles of questions. It's like it's quite a unique thing to MAT, but it kind of really focuses on getting that kind of like logical thinking going. Especially what I found is when it comes to the proofs, you're often kind of mainly doing 3 types of proofs. The first prominent one being case analysis. So like you have different cases, you want to analyze each of those different cases and then see what can happen in each of those. So for example, if you're trying to prove that a player can't win in a certain game, you want to look at each of the different cases in that game. So like if this happens, or if this happens, or if this happens, that constitutes of all the possible outcomes of the game. And if in all outcomes, that player can't win, then that's how you prove it. And then there's also, there's proof by induction, but obviously a lot of the cases in the MAT, you don't have to actually be, very mathematically worded. You can kind of just, you can give a more rudimentary answer to something, because at the end of the day, it's not really testing like your proper deep math knowledge. It's more just like seeing that your thinking is in line with what Oxford kind of wants you to have as a student. But yeah, those are the main differences.
Nice. I was wondering, we're going to go into it more later in terms of preparing for the MAT, but in terms of that, the game theory side and the logic side, what would you advise for like upcoming ComSci students who are going to apply who are going to take the MAT? How do they prepare for that? That's like question 6 and 7, that ComSci side, the game theory, logic sides. Would you advise?
Yeah, Yeah, that's the thing with it. It's kind of hard because so as I was saying, it's like quite unique to the MAT exam. So what I personally would recommend honestly doing is just the main source of where you're going to get these kind of questions are in just MAT past papers. So just doing all those past papers, but in particular, and I'm sure we'll cover this like later on as well, but in particular, just making sure when you do those questions, you like answer them, you properly spend the time to answer them. So maybe at the start, don't necessarily worry about timing. Just make sure you kind of like, you just keep on trying to get the answer to that question and get your head into that right kind of space. Because honestly, with these questions, and that's one of the, one of the trickier parts of like MAT for CompSci applicants is that honestly, you can't find many of these questions in other places. It's mainly on the MAT papers. So you just got to really make use of those available resources, those questions that you have access to, and just try and get as good as them as possible. And also, you've got to note that all the other applicants are in a similar position to you. They don't have like a magical bank of questions which have these kind of CompSci oriented questions. So everyone's in the same kind of boat. So you just got to drill down on what you have available.
Nice. And question for both of you: how similar is like the maths and the questions in the math to like the course that you do now for maths and CompSci? So asking of Sam.
How similar are to the actual maths course themselves? They cover very different things because the maths very much A-level content and kind of relatively basic maths compared to the uni stuff, but it's kind of similar skills in some ways, stuff you do at problem sheets, kind of having to think outside the box and take kind of these facts you've been told in lessons or in lectures and apply them to new and sometimes quite weird situations. It kind of encourages you to not, the A-level a lot of the time is, here's a standard method, apply standard method, repeat. However, with both the math and actual university maths, very rarely do you get a do standard thing and repeat question. Sometimes I wish you did get more of those, make problem sheets easier, but generally speaking, it is a lot more, every question kind of requires you to think and do some kind of problem solving skills and think outside the box. It's kind of the key skill in the math. Again, it's something that can only be learned by doing a load of math questions.
Nice. And Abishek, what about how have you found?
Yeah, I'd say basically just the kind of problem solving ability that you gain by practicing these MAT papers and like doing the entrance exam. It is definitely applied. I feel like a lot of the time, maybe I apply that kind of problem solving skill without necessarily acknowledging, oh, this is something I learned from the MAT to like do. But I think it is something that you kind of apply in the background. Obviously, the content's going to be quite different because this is just AS maths, and you're going to be learning. When you get to uni, like new set of maths, more CompSci oriented stuff, like actually coding, that kind of stuff, where you're not going to be having like this direct correspondence of skills, but you will have that problem solving ability in the background, which I feel like I definitely learned a lot from just preparing for the MAT. So I feel like that's mainly how it's translated into my actual degree.
Nice. So it sounds like the MAT has a lot of lateral problem solving, and for someone who likes lateral problem solving, they hopefully will enjoy like preparing, or like to some extent enjoy preparing the MAT and the degrees that follow from them. If that's right. Yeah. So one question for you, Sam. How similar, we've like touched on this a bit, how similar like the questions themselves in the maths ones are to A-level and A-level maths and further maths?
So the math is basically an A-level maths exam, but on steroids, basically, is kind of the informal way of thinking about it. So first of all, there's no further maths in it. Any further maths, I know friends who are like, ooh, we'll learn a bunch of old extra bonus modules for the math. You don't need that. Just, it's on the website, the maths department website, under undergraduate study, there's a bit, scroll down a bit at the bottom of the math. It has an actual syllabus of what you need to know. It's basically first year of maths and stuff they think they'll learn in the first term or second year of A-level maths. So it's not the case you have to learn a bunch of extra stuff for it. So it's the same with the content A-level maths, but like I said earlier, A-level maths a lot of the time is there's standard methods, standard approaches. There's no question like differentiate this polynomial in A-level maths. You won't get that in the math. It's love that you'll have to differentiate polynomials in all likelihood, but in the context of a more involved question where the fact you have to differentiate this polynomial might not immediately be obvious. You have to come up with this polynomial based on some peculiar setup, and then like, oh wait, to find out this quantity, I have to differentiate it. And it's the same content and skills that applies in a really new and different way. And it's testing not just if you know how to do things, but you really deeply understand what you're doing and why it works. Often is important as well. It's a lot more in depth than the A-level thing, and a lot harder to just kind of blitz through by rote and by standard methods.
Nice. I mean, it sounds like to me, so I did maths, I did A-level maths and third maths, and it gets the credit, like it gets like the reputation for being quite robotic and like method, like if you follow the methods and you learn the methods, you do well. Whereas like the humanities subjects got the reputation for being like giving you freedom to be creative. Would you say that the math and like the degrees that you do now at Oxford are a lot more creative than like people would give them credit for, like Komsky and maths?
Absolutely, yeah. Maths at higher levels is not just do this standard method. It's a lot more proving stuff based, a lot of proofs. And trying to prove something requires some imagination. It normally requires, I mean, some proofs you can do just by churning through the algebra. And their proofs are easy, quick, but not that satisfying. The really cool proofs are the ones you really have to sit down and kind of, they require a moment of inspiration, a leap of faith, a moment of like, oh wait, I do this, a spark of inspiration basically, which you don't really get in A-level. A-level doesn't really test sparks of inspiration. They test, have you revised? Can you do this? That said, the kind of problem solving, the spark of inspiration thing is a thing you can get better at with practice. But it is a big difference that it is a lot less default rote than A-level. At school, you really just maths a lot of it is by autopilot. At university, it very much isn't.
Nice. Is there anything to add like to that, Abishek, in your experiences?
Yeah, no, I think it's honestly just really similar for me as well. That spark of inspiration thing is like really true. It's as opposed to like, you know, kind of just churning out these known patterns in A-level exams and that kind of stuff. You actually have to like almost think outside the box, use a more like autonomous approach to solving questions. Yeah, I feel like I had quite some experience of that when actually tackling like university level maths, or at least the maths that I cover in the computer science degree. It's quite similar, yeah.
Nice. I guess it's quite difficult to be able to like have a creative approach to like Komsky and maths, because you'd have to like understand all the knowledge and then understand it so well to use it creatively. If like, do you guys understand that? Whereas like anyone could read a fiction book and have like some sort of opinion on it, but not everyone can like, you know, understand like proof by induction or understand coding to then come to a point where they can understand it so well that they can use it laterally.
I think the interesting thing about maths is that it's creativity, but under the kind of very precise constraints, you know, these rules of logic and what implies what, the kind of those fixed rules you operate within. The fact that you have creativity in the context of these fixed rules kind of makes it more interesting in some ways. It's like in chess, you have a number of legal moves, yet still grandmaster chess players are incredibly creative with their strategies. It's kind of a similar thing with maths. It's not like the complete open, unbridled freedom of writing a book or something. It's very much freedom under these interesting constraints. I think quite interesting, to be honest. I remember a friend of mine said she read in a book somewhere or something that musicians make beautiful things with music, and authors make beautiful things with words, and mathematicians make beautiful things with ideas.
Interesting.
Mathematical ideas, but ideas nonetheless.
Yeah, Tom. Do you resonate with any of that, Abishek? Or
yeah, I think so. Especially, I do agree with that. But then also, just adding on to something I think Sam said earlier as well, it's like this kind of this spark of inspiration, this like thinking outside the box, is again to some extent a skill that you can practice and get better at. Because I know that, you know, like for certain in first year, I was not very good at that stuff, like, you know, being able to come up with those like, you know, outside the box thinking methods. But as you keep on doing it and as you keep on practicing it, you do get better at it. So I don't want to seem like kind of like a daunting prospect of like, oh, you're suddenly transitioning from A level where it's like, oh, it's just pattern based thinking to like, oh, now you actually need to think for yourself. It's something you get better at, and also as Sam says, it is actually like is very interesting, and it's also really satisfying when you can actually like finally come up with a way to actually solve the question and find that method that works. So yeah, it's honestly really fun. And yeah, no, that's what I think on it.
Nice. Yeah, no, yeah, I think the chemistry problem solving that I do is very similar as well. And yeah, anyone listening, yeah, definitely agree with both of you guys that you do get better at it, the problem solving, the more you practice, and those golden moments when you're problem solving, you get to the answer. It's like that dopamine release, that keeps you coming back for more. I guess for a lot of people. Yeah. So in terms of the mat, how did you both prepare for it? Starting with Sam.
So basically, the best bit of advice you may have already gathered is just do past papers. There are loads on the website, everything back to like 2007, plus a couple of specimens, all with mark schemes, and even a few have like extra notes written by examiners, I think. So there's a lot of stuff. There's like comparable amounts of stuff, materials there are for a regular A level, which is excellent. So yeah, just do a bunch of those. You start early, I recommend. Start in your first year of sixth form, I recommend, really, if possible. Even to start to do a couple of questions a week, and if possible, maybe smart teaching, get them to mark them if possible. And do them with your mates. If you have any friends who want to apply for maths or just interested in maths in general, sit down one lunchtime and say, okay, today we're going to crack out a math question while having our sandwiches. And start off doing small things, getting used to it, then kind of build up. And I recommend by the summer before you apply, you should be doing past papers, and towards the end, make sure they're fully timed past papers, because timing is a difficulty with the math. I mean, even some of the multiple choice questions, I can't remember what the exact timings are, but you end up not having very long per question. And some of the multiple choices seem like they take a few minutes to work out. Like, oh, wait, I have to write quickly. You have to kind of work out shortcuts, and like sometimes like calculating integral. It's not just a case of you don't really have time to actually do the full calculation. You just have like some clever trick which makes it obvious which of the 5 answers it is. To kind of do a bunch of past papers, if possible, get teachers to mark them. If not, all the mark schemes are online. However, there's a thing that the mat is not just marked super strictly like A level. It's like, this is what you must say, therefore get marks. A robot can mark A level, to be entirely honest. But this is a bit different. They do kind of take into account kind of your intention and kind of mark based on how much of the idea you think you have. And if you have a slightly different idea that you think still is a worthwhile, interesting idea, even if it's not explicitly shown on the mark scheme, they'll still award you. The whole mat is a lot more a fluid kind of understand how you think rather than tick boxes kind of exercise like A level.
Interesting. And yeah, Abishek, what about for you? And because you had different Komsky questions to do.
Yeah. So again, as is quite obvious, you just need to keep on practicing. Just do lots and lots of practice. And I think in particular when I was preparing for it, I found that a lot of the time, like when I did the questions, including just like the short multiple choice questions, I struggle with it quite a bit. But I think it's really important that you actually, or at least for me, what I did is like in the first kind of half of the preparation, I'd actually literally do those questions like untimed, and just make sure I actually get to an answer or some answer of some sort. It might be wrong, but I just really make sure like I just keep on doing the question and attempting it until I get somewhere. Because a lot of the time, especially because like you literally have all these mark schemes available to you, and it can be really tempting to like do a question for like 15 minutes or something like that, and then just look at the answer and just be like, okay, so that's how you do it. But what you should do is like be really persistent at it, really resilient at like trying to actually figure it out yourself, because it's that thinking pattern that's what's actually going to make you good at the MAT, and also when you actually like start your degree, that's what's going to help you. So I'd really recommend like you make sure you spend the time trying to solve the questions, trying to get the answer, and then after you kind of get better at that. In my case, I think that was like probably the the second half of the summer, because I really just started preparation like around the start of the year 12 summer. Obviously, some people start earlier, some people start later. It's kind of up to you, but I would definitely say obviously the earlier the better. But in my experience, I started around the start of the summer, and then nearing September is when I started like properly doing it timed. But even when you do it timed, obviously see how you do. But also once you finished it, it's very likely there are going to be questions which you weren't able to even like do. Make sure you do those again without looking at the mark scheme. Just really get into that habit of trying to solve the question and get to the end of it without just like, cheating or trying to do it quickly. It's about, just getting that thinking pattern working basically.
Nice. I also wanted to add that so if anyone's struggling like with A levels and trying to make time for paying for the mat. I know what one of my friends did is he applied for Oxford after his A levels. He like had his A levels, which helped, but also just meant that leading up to the mat, instead of having to revise for A levels and prepare for the mat, he just had all his time to prepare for the mat and did very well. So that's also an option. Wanted to add, but if you do that, probably making it clear in your personal statement how you would use the time to continue the maths. But
I also say like when I was preparing for the mat, I definitely did prioritize that over A levels in like the first half of that term. So I think the exams like early November, I think up until that point, I was definitely prioritizing the mat over just my general A level studies, because I found that it is in general, it's not that hard to catch up with A levels because you have like the Christmas holidays, so you have that time, after interviews, etc., to catch up on it. So that's what I did personally. I think obviously you shouldn't just like completely abandon your A levels, but you can like spend a lot more time on the mat than you think. So just make sure like that is your priority in those like few months. That at least that's what worked for me. So
yeah, I definitely focused on the mat and definitely over the summer and exams, actual college exams not long after the mat, but definitely focus more on that. And the great thing is if you're preparing for the mat, you're kind of doing maths revision while doing it, because the same material, and you can't when preparing for the mat, make sure you do know the A-level material really well. It's really important that you have a really firm grip on it. There's on the website, there's some really good stuff on there. There's on the side, something like the specimen questions or something, like a list of fairly simple questions, but from the A-level course. Like if you can answer all these, you probably know the right stuff to do the mat. Like if you can't answer all these questions, then make sure you can before kind of doing the mat, kind of checking the key bits of the A-level spec. But yeah, doing mat prep is kind of like A-level maths prep, so I wouldn't worry too much in that regard. The summer's definitely the best time to really crack on with it.
Nice. So almost coming to the end, but I want to ask, what was your guys' personal experiences taking the mat, starting with Abishek?
So I will honestly just say it's going to be quite a tough experience, and that's just something that you should be prepared for. Everyone finds it difficult. I found it really difficult, and when you're doing like those papers, like you're going to probably be getting at least at the start for sure, you're going to be getting low scores. Those might improve, but even as you're approaching the mat, sometimes you're still going to be not very confident, because some papers might go really well, and then you might do another paper the next day and then suddenly, oh, that's actually going quite badly, and you're oh, I'm not actually sure if I'm prepared for this. But yeah, I think I just really reinforced the fact that happens to everyone. It's not going to be an easy experience, and at the end of the day, the mat isn't the only part of the application process that's taken into consideration. Stuff like your GCSEs, personal statement, all that stuff is also taken into consideration. So I wouldn't put too much stress on yourself on it. It's going to be tough, but just basically be prepared for that. Everyone finds it difficult, basically. That's what I'd say on it.
Yeah, I remember feeling vaguely confident going in, and then the actual exam went worse than most of my practice ones, which was a wonderful feeling. Time really got away from me in the heat of the moment. But the key thing is that it's not just the mat which decides whether you get in or not. It's not like they take the top 10% of mat people and give them places. It's a lot more holistic thing, and it's not the be all and end all. And even if you don't, it doesn't go well, even if you don't get an interview, doing the mat will still be worthwhile as you gain really useful problem solving skills that'll set you in great stead for wherever you do maths. So it is important, and do try hard and prep like heck, but it is not the end of the world, and try and relax if that's possible.
Yeah, the ultimate goal of trying to relax for exams. But yeah, no, yeah, both good, yeah, very good advice. I'd fully advocate. I remember, yeah, I mean, I guess for me, I guess with my interviews, I guess I felt like I'd got to the interviews and I felt like, well, I couldn't have tried harder. So and then it was quite chill. But I don't know, that's not, I know you always feel like you could have tried harder sometimes. So maybe that's not the best advice. They worked for me. So the last question we have is, how does the MAT differ to Cambridge's maths step exam? And I'm not sure what their admissions test is for Komsky, so we'll get onto that as well. So Sam, how do you know the differences?
Yes, the step, yes. So the MAT is a test done in October, November time. It's November the 3rd this year, which is part of it's when you apply, it's MAT, then interviews, then offer, and then A-levels. And you get the offer and off you go. For Cambridge, it's you apply, you have interview. They have a much larger proportion of people who apply to Cambridge get an interview than Oxford. But interviews, in Oxford, the interview is kind of one of the biggest hurdles, and Cambridge one of the smaller hurdles. Because if you do fairly well in the interview, you get an offer. They still offer way more places than they actually have, because the offer involves doing well in step. And step isn't just one exam, it's 3 exams. Step 2 and 3 are the ones that usually count for the step Cambridge offers. And then you have to do well in the step to get a place. It's a fundamentally different structure in terms of where they take place in the admissions process. I personally prefer how Oxford do it, unsurprisingly. Yeah, the step is, I guess, I did a few step questions. Kind of some friends who applied to Cambridge, we all kind of did some stuff together. I believe the questions are of a similar breed. They're kind of the same idea of A-level maths, but taken to a new level. But more stuff, because the step questions done at the same time as A-levels, which is feels a bit mean, to be honest. But the kind of same idea, but more content, and the structure is massively different. Not massively, but fairly different. And there's a bunch of stuff on the internet, I'm sure you can find exactly how they work if you're interested in that. And you can do both the MAT and the step. You can't apply to both Oxford and Cambridge. But if you want to do both, you can. I know a guy who did the step for fun. If you want to do that, go ahead.
And if you apply to Imperial, you will end up doing both as well. Imperial and Cambridge. Because and another uni. Because he actually might have to do both the MAT and step. Yeah. Sorry to cut you off. Abishek, so in terms of, am I right in thinking, I think you were saying before that you don't do that the steps just purely maths, that if you're applying for Komsky at Cambridge, you won't be doing the step?
Yeah, so I think Komsky's it's a bit strange in the sense that, so when you refer to Oxbridge, so like obviously Oxford has the MBT exam, and then Cambridge has, when I was applying, I had a CSAT exam, I had like a computer science specific exam, but now I think it's changed to the TMUA, which I think is also used by like a lot of other unis, and it's kind of similar to the MAT in terms of the questions, but then weirdly enough, I think Imperial requires you to do step, or like at least, because there are three step exams. It's like step 1, step 2, step 3. They would require step 1, and they don't require like a very high grade in it. So you may, it depending on what uni to apply to, you may end up having to do step. But in general, I think at least when it comes to so just talking about the MAT, what I would say is that the step is not very useful for that. It goes too much into like the pure maths and that kind of stuff for like the actual computer science long answer questions that you get in the MAT exam. So I wouldn't say it's particularly relevant. I wouldn't recommend using that as practice. unless you've just done like, so much practice that you're like, oh, I might as well just look at STEM as well. But it's definitely not the most useful source of practice. And then if you are applying to Imperial, I think that you would only then do step practice like once you've got the offer anyway. So in the build up to the MAT exam, what I would say is just like, don't just ignore step basically. Just focus on the MAT. And also you can do the TMUA, which is what I also did. And you can do some other kind of sources as well. I think like the maths challenge, particularly like the maths kangaroo. I think I did a few of those as well, because there's like good for the multiple choice, like they're just kind of that level maths. That's quite useful. And yeah, I think also another thing I'd add as well is just make sure you like use as many online resources as possible when it comes to this preparation, because I think the student room was like amazing for me when I was like practicing. You get like a lot of help on there. You get some people often come up with like math style questions and stuff which you can actually use, and they're quite good. But yeah, that's what I'd say in terms of that kind of preparation.
Nice. Amazing. I think that covers all the questions that we had. And yeah, I feel like I'd know. I certainly think I've got a decent idea of how to apply for the MATs. I'm sure the viewers do as well. So thanks, guys, for sharing your experiences. Very comprehensive approach to applying for the MAT. And thanks to the viewers for listening in, whether it's on the podcasting platform or YouTube, IGTV. And yeah, hope you all stay safe. And we'll see you guys next time.